This is Tanya Pearson interviewing Cecilia Villar Eljuri on March 24th, 2019 in New York City for the Women of Rock Oral History Project.
Es un gusto verte. It's a pleasure to see you.
It's a pleasure to see you too.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for participating.
It's really a treat.
Did I pronounce your name correctly that time?
It was, yeah, you did.
It was good?
It was
Okay,
good.
so I'm like, if you want to correct it for people, feel free. So these interviews are personal and professional biographies. We start way at the beginning and work up to present day. It's like this is your life. Yeah, it's going to be fun.
So, but it'll be mostly in English,
yes.
which is also fun for me too.
Okay, great. Because we were talking about how I can't speak Spanish. But next time I see you, I will.
Yes,
I'm planning on being fluent in Spanish.
Poco a poco, little by little, you'll get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you will.
So I know you were born in Ecuador.
Sí.
But you didn't grow up there?
Yeah, I was born in Guayaquil, Ecuador.
Okay.
Guayaquil is the biggest city of Ecuador. It's a port city. But when I was a little baby girl, my family moved to New York City. So I grew up in Manhattan.
Oh.
I mean, I was like, 1.5 or something.
Mm-hmm.
So
but
I have tons of family there. Tons. Yeah.
Do you go back a lot?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
And what did your parents do?
I came from a very creative family. My father was a famous actor, theater, television, radio. He did a lot of newscasts to sport, not news but sports. Like he did a lot of the soccer broadcasting, but he was a famous actor and theater, television, and film. And my mother, a musician and an incredible composer and pianist, who I admire and learned much from.
Why did your parents move you to Manhattan?
Well, I think because my father liked the Yankees, so that was one reason. But a lot, no, seriously, I think it was really more opportunity for the four of us, the four kids, and just the yearning for a more stable, politically stable environment. I mean, they did very well in Ecuador, and they were wonderful artists there and everything. But the U.S. was the land of opportunity, and they wanted really more for the kids, and they were both adventurous enough, being creative types. So New York was the choice, though. I mean, I think it was between Spain and the U.S., but New York, it wasn't even the U.S., it was New York City. Yeah, so.
And how many siblings do you have?
I have 3.
Where are you in that?
I'm the baby. Oh, by far the baby.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
That makes
baby
sense.
all the way. All the way, the little baby.
What was your relationship like with your parents and your siblings?
Great. I had a great upbringing. We didn't have a lot of money growing up in the city, but we had a lot of love and a lot of fun and a lot of music and a lot of creative energy, and New York was a great place to grow up. Manhattan was filled with all types of people, and we embraced that. As my family was very, very open about that. So,
how did you express yourself creatively was it always music,
that's
or
a
did
great
you do
question.
other things?
That's a great question. It was really art and music.
What kind of art?
I used to paint and draw and do calligraphy and all sorts of. I used to save up money and go to the art store and buy little tips of pens so I could draw, and I built this animation table so that I could do my own little I mean, this is when I was little, do my own animation, because there was always about films and cinematography at home and piano, and so it was normal to have this box with the light under it and a clear glass. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, so
that's just
so really... I was drew that, and so I was way into that, and then that kind of came and went, but music stayed. I was doing music all the time too.
When did you pick up your first instrument?
4, 5. I was, there was a piano at home.
Oh, so it was piano first.
Piano, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. When did you make the switch to guitar?
About 12, 13, because I was playing other stringed instruments, mandolin-y things and autoharpy things, and all that. And then I played drums for like a year because I bought Eddie Garcia's drums for $50. And when I was 12, or when I was in 5th grade, I had my first all-girl band. There were 3 of us, and so then that's when I played drums, and then I switched to guitar because it's easier to write songs on guitar. So yeah. You understand.
Yeah.
So that just it then never turned back, and then it was electric, amps, pedals, all the fun stuff.
That's my only frustration playing drums is I'm like, oh, I have this song idea, but if you're not the songwriter in the band.
It's hard to accompany yourself, right? It's just
really,
yes.
And I can't tell people what to do if they're the songwriters. You know what I mean?
But you can get in there as a songwriter.
Yeah, I try. Were your parents? Well, first of all, were all of your siblings as creative as you? Like, did you all do art? Did you all play music or musical instruments?
Like in both my families were. Like my mother's side, the Lebanese side. My mother's Lebanese. El-Khoury is actually Lebanese name that became El-Khoury when we went to Ecuador. When that family went. So that side had, I had 2 aunts who were ballerinas who had ballet school. I had my other aunt my grandmother who sang. So my uncle who sang too. So there was a lot of music and dance on my mother's side, and my father's side was all the actors. So then my brother studied cinematography. My 2 sisters were into music and dance, but so he kind of pursued my father's side, and I was the deep musician though. They didn't get as deep, but it was around. The love of music.
Yeah.
Like even if it wasn't playing, like my sister studied piano. One of my sisters studied piano with me, but then now she's like an avid listener of music, so turned me on to a lot of great music, all my brothers and sisters growing up.
And were your parents supportive of all of your creative pursuits?
Yes.
And what about like academics? School also important, or how did you?
School was the most important.
Okay.
By far. That was another thing. They were like, the education you can get in this country, education. Assimilation was important, but don't forget your roots. So I, definitely had that balance and of like, I'm Lebanese Spanish, born in Ecuador with sons of, that's really important to me. I speak fluent Spanish. I understand the culture, the arts, everything of my roots. But they also believed in assimilating and learning English and going to the best possible schools and studying, and the importance of knowledge, whether it's to learn how to play your instrument properly, whether it's to learn how to speak properly, whether it's like academics were number 1.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So were they like worried at all when you started to kind of think about pursuing music as a career?
Well, it was always in there. Like, music was always in there, and I didn't go. I mean, I studied piano, I studied a lot of theory, I taught myself guitar, I took voice lessons, blah, blah, blah. But then when I got to college, I studied theoretical mathematics.
Okay.
So it became like, like this kind of growth thing, if that makes any sense. Like, it wasn't never giving up music, though. Mm-hmm. But I didn't want to be a classical musician, so I studied what I was into, which was math. But kept playing music. So
math. Scary.
Well, I like theoretical math because it's really creative. As applied math is important too, but theoretical's really creative. And
I want to go back a little bit because I want to know more about college, but I also want to know about. I like learning about people in high school. Yes. So, what was your high school experience like? Who did you hang out with?
In high school, that's a great question. In high school, there was a whole bunch of us a lot of us that were playing music. We had I had a basement where I grew up, in the building I grew up in, and that's when I started having my own bands in the basement. Whether it was, 2 acoustic guitars and 3 voices, whether it was, the most important one was this kind of punk band that I one of these punk bands that I started because we admired all the CB's people, you know, musicians at CBGB's, so we were like, we want to be them. So that's when it was like I was writing the songs, leading the band, and it was one of my first bands started in high school.
Was that Yin
Yang and the Rabbits,
okay.
these two bands that were very local and like, I don't know, 16, playing
you were
CBs
that
at
young? 17.
I played CBs when I was 7. They didn't know it, but it didn't seem to matter.
It probably didn't
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah, it didn't in those days. It was awesome. Yeah.
You said when you were in 5th grade that you played with other girls.
Yeah.
When you were in high school,
Yeah.
was it like mixed gender bands as well, or were you?
No, that was when I was playing drums, and it was like a school show,
Okay.
and so we were like the strawberries or the raspberries, one of those berries, and it was 3 of us, and my class was playing with my sister's class. They were dancing, and me and 2 other girls were the band. So that's when we were playing. That was my first all-girl band.
But you weren't like this anomaly when you were younger. It seems like there were other women who could play. Who were playing music, or girls.
There were two of my friends. Yeah.
Just 2. Okay.
Yeah. It wasn't that many. We were strange.
Oh,
Yeah.
you okay? Together.
Yes.
you were,
Nobody knew
you
what
were the
hell was.
anomalies.
Yeah. We were like. They were like, okay. Yeah. It wasn't common. No. Yeah.
And then, so you went to college. I'm assuming college was something that you were expected to do because you said
Exactly.
your parents were okay.
Because education was so important.
Yeah.
So that was a must.
Mhm.
And I liked it.
Where did you go?
I went to Fordham.
Oh, okay. And
I was one of 5 math majors at Fordham. It's not really known for that. Yeah. But
and you chose the math major because
I liked it.
You liked it. Okay. It wasn't because it like coincided with music, right?
It wasn't conscious. Now that I look back, it's subconscious, I guess, but it wasn't a conscious like, because I try to play from my heart, not from my brain as much as, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Try not to approach it so analytically, you know? Yeah.
What did you plan on doing with a math degree, though?
Well, there were different jobs that you could take, which I did, you know, so that I could have like a band and make money.
Okay.
So,
what were your math jobs?
like a math job would be like actuarial science, like do stuff like that, and you could make some money, and it was a good gig, because I never wanted to play other people's music. I only wanted to play my own.
Okay.
So that kind of helped that path.
So, okay, I'm trying to think of how to ask this because you said that you like to play from the heart,
Yes.
not analytically. You like to write your own songs.
I only played my own songs my whole career. Yeah. Pretty much.
And you were working these other jobs, did you intend to like make music a career?
Yeah.
Like a lifetime career?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It was me, my friend Tony Santos, and then I started a band with the Trouble Dolls. I started with we were like we were all kind of similar, like we were hustling, trying to, have our independence, financial independence, also have the Trouble Dolls take off, you know what I mean? So it was, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
were any of those earlier bands, were you signed to labels or anything, or like what was the scene like?
Oh,
at the
so
time?
the Trouble Dolls, that was an all-girl band, and we did pretty well in like New York and a little bit of Boston, like in the Northeast, and we weren't signed, but we were almost signed. It was one of those, and from that though, I started Groupo Fiesta, that came out of the Trouble Dolls, and the Trouble Dolls had like, I wanted Latin rhythm, so we had a percussion player, Wendy Wen, and then Nyla was deep rooted in reggae, she's a bass player, so then she's a great bass player, and then Amy was kind of like a pop drummer, and Catton was one of the co-writers with me, and so we had this kind of like, it was like a mix, like so many genres in one, and so some of the people were like, you don't fit in the box, you know, the whole thing, blah, blah, blah. But we did well. We were like selling out the bitter end and selling out CBGBs, and we were like, oh, this, you know, but there was too much friction, like of like direction and this and that, and so then that's when I said I'm going deeper into Latin, and I started Groupo Fiesta, and it was fine. I mean, it wasn't, everybody went their own, you know, way. Yeah. And then Grupo Fiesta did get signed to everything. All my labels are indie labels that I got signed to. So Grupo Fiesta got signed to a label called NG Records, and Grupo Fiesta was very Latin rock pop during a time when I don't know if you know anything about the rock en español scene. Yeah. There was this whole scene in New York that was like rock en español, and it was because there were a lot of like second generation Latinos or first generation Latinos that were craving the music from their country or understanding the lyrics and blah blah blah. So this whole rock en español scene was happening in the U.S. in these little pockets of like Latino community kind of places. So like here it was happening at SOBs. It was big in L.A., New York, and Luaka Bop was part of that, you know, the David Byrne label.
Oh, right,
yeah.
Okay.
So it was like Los Amigos Invisibles, King Chango, and all these CSEF from New York, and Los de Abajo from Mexico. So this whole scene was happening, and Grupo Fiesta was part of that scene. But we were signed to NG Records, which was an indie alternative label that had punk and us. So they loved us, and it was great, and so we started recording with them, and then what happened? Then they got bought up by Artemis or some other label, a major, and they were like, who is this weird band? But then, when I was in Grupo Fiesta, I was writing all the songs, but mostly in English. Then, NPE bought out the NG label, and they were a Latin label from New Jersey, like puro Latino. So in that label, I'm always like in between these like buckets. So in that label, there were bachata, salsa, merengue bands, and we were the like token pop Latin rock band. It was very strange. But that label had I love your songs, blah blah blah. Rewrite them in English. In Spanish. I'm like, oh maybe. So I started writing songs in Spanish for NPE, you know, that deal. So I really liked writing songs in Spanish.
What year?
So that was
this,
that was Grupo Fiesta's, like the middle of Grupo Fiesta, which was at that point was like early 2000s at this point. Now we've gone through that timeline. So when we were on NPE and playing, so we'd be playing these festivals, big festivals, and there's a bachata band and a merengue band, and then us, and they're like, what is she doing playing an electric guitar? And other people are like, yeah, she's playing an electric guitar. It was very, very, very strange, but so much fun. And anyway, that's when I started writing more in Spanish. That whole transition happened.
That was one of my later questions.
It was almost by accident, but starting Grupo Fiesta, I wanted to get deeper into my Latino side. And so I was like really studying Afro-Cuban music, which I love, which my father loved. The clave is a completely different rhythmic pattern than rock, and reggae. I always love reggae. So then, all that was swirling around, and that was good. I was deep into, but then I started when I was deep into the Grupo Fiesta and the Latin. I was like missing my rock side, my reggae side, my world. So I'm like, what now? You know, and NPE wasn't giving us what we wanted. They started out loving us, and so then there was friction. There was the friction there again. So then it was time to move on, and I got very good advice from two very close people that were managing my career at this time, and that was Paul Romano and Alexandra Gacci, and they said you should go solo.
Wait, why would that be better? I'm just curious.
Because
the reasons.
I was in this. Grupo Fiesta was this sound that was expected of this like choppy pop thing with those musicians. That's the sound those musicians generated. That was the sound that the label had, and so I got off that label and I went independent, solo.
Okay.
It was the best thing I could have done. Musically, I don't mean anything negative about.
You hated everyone in your band.
No, oh my God, no. I loved everybody. And in fact, Alda was from Mexico, Peter was from Greece, Cindy was from Puerto Rico, Cutie Pie drummer was from from Uruguay. So it was a really great thing, but I wasn't the only one. We all kind of outgrew it. It was time. It wasn't.
How long altogether did you do?
With Fiesta, it was a long time. 7 years.
Oh, okay.
Like a chunk.
Yeah, that's a while.
Yeah.
And
you know what it's like.
Yeah. Can't imagine.
So then, and it was through this and all this path of and a lot of it was stuck, not because of the musicians, because of the label stuff. Yeah.
Has that been had that been your general experience with record labels, or was it
No, well, NG was great, but NP wasn't. Artemis was in between, and then it was independent.
Mm. Oh, right. What's or I guess, because I'm trying to think I think just thinking about Groupo Fiesta, maybe, what was the workload like? Like, how often did you have to tour? How often were you expected to record when you were on that label?
That label moved slow. Okay. That's part of the frustration. It was and it was still we were doing pockets. We didn't do that much. We only did U.S. We only did a little bit of Northeast. We did California. We didn't do enough, and that was that's what I found was the most frustrating. Mm. I mean, NG was moving fast. NP, and then we were stalled with NP. Okay. So it was very strange. It was like a rocket ship, and then flatlined, and I'm I can't. It was not good to stay there. With them, and we felt like we were dragging them, pulling them.
I was going to say it must be frustrating if you're writing all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. I was writing stuff that I was this is not meant for Fiesta anymore. The stuff I started writing, and that's when Paul and Alex were you should go solo.
Yeah.
Because the new stuff you're writing is, and I was building up my home studio more, and the whole thing was happening in a really exciting, creative way, independent of what I was locked into. So.
And you said independent now, so you have your own record label.
Right.
Okay, I imagine that's not a lot of work at all. I was
well, it's with a team of people. I'm not alone.
Yeah.
And then we partnered with, and then the stuff happened with Mexico, which there was a sister label in Mexico. So that became the big, one of the bigger markets. Because at this point now I'm writing, my solo record was mostly in Spanish. I went all the way in Spanish, but musically it was more diverse. So it was but it was right. It felt right. And that really took off.
Who was the majority of your fan base, would you say?
In Mexico's probably the primary, and in the U.S. it's the pockets of the more Latino-based cities, but I also have fan base on the reggae side and the world beat side. So I'm Latin rock, reggae, and world beat, because there's also a whole world beat community that supports me and my music. Yeah, and also Canada too. So Canada, U.S., Mexico, Colombia, a little bit of Ecuador. They know about me, but I haven't toured there. Okay. Believe it or not. And so, but in the U.S., it's the pockets where world beat is happening and where Latin alternative or Latin rock is happening, if that makes any sense. I hate to bucket it, but you're asking the question.
Yeah. No.
And in Canada, it's more world beat stuff.
Okay.
Like those kind of festivals and those kind of audiences that.
And what are some pros and cons of being an independent artist versus being on a label?
The pros are that you build up the team as you need it. So like, if you're putting a record out, it's all budgeting and everything else, and you build up the team as you need it. So you're putting a record out. That's when you need more publicists. That's when you need, you need to do radio campaign, and when you need to set up tours. And the biggest pro is your own creative control. You decide who's on the record, who your engineers are going to be, who's going to produce it. Whether I produced the last record myself, but with great engineers. Where you're going to record, who are the musicians and everything else. So the creative control is the best thing, by far, and the building and shrinking so that your budget is managed that way, as opposed to a label deciding, where you're going to do a music video and you're like, well, I don't want a music video for that song, or that shouldn't be the single, and I'm on the hook for paying them back because they picked that as the single and the video. Doing it yourself, you still need people. I'm not doing anything by myself because you'll otherwise you're stuck in your own thing, like you're swirling, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's really important that you have trusted advisors and a team around you in order for it to work. I don't think I'm like not gonna just sit in my studio at home and do everything and just put it out and do everything all by myself. That's not me at all.
So you seem like you don't seem like a control freak. Are you
I'm
a collaborator? Oh, you are.
I'm a control freak on the music.
Okay.
On the music side. On the, the team of who should be, where should I show up to do promotion? What's the beautiful creative video that we're coming up? All that's collaborative. What's the vision of taking this song somewhere else? As far as the vision for a song, I'm a control freak. As far as I don't disrespect what you're playing there, but I'd rather hear this. But give me your idea. But then if it's not what I like, then I go back to what I want, because I try to see it. I'm always exploring the arrangement vision of a song when I'm writing it, kind of. And now that with Pro Tools at home, I can do much more arrangements. Arrange the whole song before we even step into a studio. So, but that said, I surround myself with such talent that I have the good fortune they support me musically, that I know, like, my drummer Alex Alexander's going to deliver like what I'm imagining. Like, we're already he could read my mind before he plays the conga pattern or the clave or whatever, the guido thing that I'm imagining, because I've been working with him for so many years, for example. So I guess I'm a little of both. Mm-hmm. Very highly collaborative, control freak. I'm a control freak when it comes to the music and to the budget.
Okay. Yeah, so you were talking a little bit about musicians that you played with, your drummer that you played with forever.
Yes.
But you played with a lot of different studio session and live musicians.
Sure.
How do you choose them, number one? And then the second part of that is that you said you're collaborative yet a control freak. How do you kind of like navigate those personalities and remain sort of assertive, especially when you're playing with professional people who I'm assuming have opinions about how they want to play?
That's a great question. You kind of, I found the best way to find people is through people. Mm-hmm. Again, I'm surrounded, like Alex Gatchi and others who are part of the El Hudi Monoville Records team or whatever, are very helpful in protecting the cone of positive energy and good professionalism. And so we're very cautious about surrounding ourselves. It is very cautious with bringing somebody into the fold that is going to be positive energy and super talented and want to be there and all those things, because it's music. We're, at the end of the day, you're like, wait a minute, we're making music. And I think that I really have a really deep vision, strong vision of what I want the song to sound like. I think that's the key to getting the great musicians to support the song, as opposed to I'm just a bossy person that wants my way, even though you have to be assertive, because you have to stick to what you believe in. You can't be subtle. It's like, I guess because I learned over the years working with all these in all these environments that when I compromised, I felt the pain of compromise. So like I don't want to compromise anymore. I try not to compromise anymore on the music side. In life, you have to compromise, on the business side, you have to compromise every day, more than not. But on the music side, you want to stay true to the song. The song is the thing that drives me. If that makes any sense. So like, I had like Jeanette Napolitano, genius. She and I connected. I don't remember exactly how, but when I was working on my first solo record, I'm like, wow, it'd be great if she could sing on this song. And because she's into flamenco. With Rumba Flamenco as part of my sound, Rumba Flamenco y todo eso, my song Howla. So Jeanette and I were talking, and we were like, I was like, wow, maybe you could sing on this, do a duet. So then, but she got it. Like, does that make sense musically? The song, it wasn't like, oh, I want to do this for you, Eljuri. I mean, she obviously did that for me, which is, I worship her to this day, before that and because of that. But then it was being true to the song, so like she gave it up for the song, Yeah, yeah. But so that was an example, and then like with Sly and Robbie, they found me. So I'm like, oh, great, Sly and Robbie found me, and I was in the middle of writing songs for the first album, and again, like my trusted advisor said, drop everything and write that song with Sly and Robbie. I'm like, okay, because you're like so caught up in your own world that you think what you're doing is more important, but I'm around trusted people, and so then I wrote a song with them, and now I have 3 songs with them on each of my albums, and I'm so excited to be putting out a compilation reggae CD now. So my current like musician makeup, I'm usually live. It's a power trio, and I record with different people, but my main go-to drummer and percussionist is Alex Alexander. He's an amazing musician. He's played with so many greats, but he's like my main drummer and percussionist. When we record, he does all the percussion overdubs, whatever. He's from Cali, Colombia, but he was raised in New York, so he's very similar to me. Like he's like got that like the roots. Like he's heard, like he knows the Latino rhythms. He knows a rumba, son cubano, and all these rhythms that are kind of underlying. But he grew up in New York playing rock drums, touring with, he's played with people from David Bowie, Shaka Khan, like all types of great musicians, and he's a great player, so he completely gets me. And so when I tour usually and record, it's with him. And bass players, I have different bass players. Tracy Wormworth has recorded on my last album and played a couple live shows with me. She's great. She's an amazing bass player. Winston Roy, is playing with me now. Johnny Paisano, I don't know if you know Johnny Paisano. He's been around too. He's more from like the punk world, and but when I tour in Mexico, I have musicians there that I play with, and they're great musicians. My bass player is Coca Cortez from Los de Abajo, which is part of that scene of the Luaca Bop scene that I was telling you about with David Byrne. So Coca plays with me mostly in Mexico, but he's played in Colombia and in Canada with me, so it depends. And Javier Sosa is a killer drummer, and he was played with this band Maldita Vecindad, which is a big ska rock band from Mexico. So these are like my main players. Yeah, I'm very fortunate. Power trio, live. Yeah, it's fun.
Okay, can I ask people kind of gendered questions sometimes, but it's because I'm genuinely curious, so now I have this like big long disclaimer, but I just feel like certain jobs or career paths, when you're a woman, maybe have different consequences than
Yes.
if if it was a man. So being a working musician, has that like enhanced or inhibited your ability to like have relationships or like date, or were you someone that always wanted to get married and have kids and then you didn't because you play music? I mean, just like anything.
I think music is makes it tough to raise a family. I think it is tricky, even though I know a lot of my musician friends got married and had kids, but the traveling thing, the weird schedule thing makes it tricky. I've had plenty of great relationships, so I don't think that's a problem, but I think the kid thing made it, for me, didn't really work out, like, because of this crazy lifestyle. But the gender thing in music, I have definitely felt over the years. No question. No question.
Okay.
No question.
In what capacity?
You go to you're the all-girl band thing, starting with that. Aren't these girls cute? You girlies go up there. I mean, all the comments that over those years of being the trouble dolls we felt. Looking back, it was so obvious. But you gave you thick skin. The fact that I'm a powerful lead guitarist is where I've sensed it the most over the years. So even to this day in different countries, you get to the club, you get to the stage, the big stage, small stage, doesn't matter. You're playing in front of 5,000 people, you're playing in front of 300 people. The sound engineers, mostly always men. Obviously not my own sound engineers, I love, and they love me, and it's not this issue. They come up to you, they're like, who's the singer? I'm the singer. And I'll tell them I want these three. I tell them what the setup they have the layout, but I'm telling them, bossing them around, because I'm the leader of this band. Oh, who plays guitar? I play guitar. I'd like my amp this way, this way, this way. Do you want to help dialing it in? No. Did you know how to turn it on? No, that's okay. Who plays lead guitar? I play lead. Do you want, always what they do. I'm like, I don't need help dialing in the sound, but if you, because you're big and strong, if you could lift it up and move it to the back right here where I like it positioned, I've got it down because I know it's coming. Like, so I just can't believe it still goes on. I cannot, and then once I start playing, then they're like, oh, then it all changes, which is fine, but all that happens all the time. Yeah. Everywhere.
Consistent, like throughout your life.
Every country, every city, it's happened. And on the flip side, I'm so used to it, I just know what to say already, so it's fine. And I think it's getting better. I think it's getting better, or I'm just better at it, and so I don't care anymore.
Maybe you just don't notice it anymore.
But I get what I need, which is what I'm after. I want a good sound on stage. I want this done. I want what I want, and you have to be firm without, like, you have to know how to navigate that water, if that makes any sense. And I'm sure that's not what a lead guitarist, male lead band person would feel. There's no way that's how they would be treated. There's no way. No. They're saying that to, a male version of me.
You want me to dial it in?
It's yeah. Some people are sweet about it, and some people it is derogatory. You could feel when they're like rolling their eyes, because I'm asking for a plug and they're busy with the setting up the drums or whatever. You can tell, and sometimes it's, like I said, it's really fine, and sometimes it's really not fine, and I make it clear that it's not fine, but I don't want to screw up the show either, so. I feel it less in studios, but we still need more women in the engineering side. Like right now I'm really excited this summer. I'm doing a bunch of workshops with this organization in New York called Sound Thinking. And it's high school girls who are into music, particularly the sound side of things. So it would be, it's really, really cool. I'm doing a bunch of workshops with them. It's a new organization that started last year. It's a New York City sponsored, endorsed thing, and it's called Sound Thinking, and I'm thrilled that exists, because it's needed. It is needed. Yeah. We need to
Yeah, on both sides of the coin, just kind of level the playing field.
Level the playing
bit,
field,
yeah.
exactly, make it fairer. Yeah.
Oh crap! I didn't write down my next question. Then I usually start just like making them up as I go along. Maybe it'll come back to me, so I'll just skip ahead to the next one. I'm hoping it'll come back. It'll come back. I did want to talk a little bit about your activist work.
Right. Yes.
Was that something that you got more involved in, like after you went solo? Or
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was after I went solo, but there were always kind of elements of that in interweaved in the songs, because that's where the messaging comes from. Like a song like this, the Truenos Distantes is about an anti-war song that came from the Trouble Dolls through Groupo Fiesta days. But it was definitely when I wrote En Paz, the record En Paz, the whole need to, maybe because I was singing in Spanish, the whole need to like voice the position of being an immigrant in the U.S. and just like I wrote a song called Tierras, and that's part of what triggered this whole like activism thing. Tierras was about, and this was in 2007, the record came out in 2008, about how we shouldn't fight over borders. I know. How we shouldn't fight over borders, we should blur the line between countries and be neighborly and, reach out your hand to your neighbor, that kind of thing, that message around Tierras. And on that record, I also had a song my mother wrote, Como en un sueño, that she wrote. And when that record came out, I was being interviewed about Tierras, that song, and then, I don't know, I was talking to my mother about her songs, and then she had this song called Recordemos el Oro, and that was a song she wrote. She had a bunch of albums out in Ecuador when she was younger, before we came here, and Recordemos el Oro was a march about peace between the border of Peru and Ecuador. So I'm like, I don't know whether it came in through the blood. She never told me about that song, but that Tierras and Recordemos el Oro is very similar. It was kind of freaky. That record, I felt like, there's too much anger in the world, there's too much danger, peligrosas on that record. So that's when that kind of was brewing with the record En Paz, but a little more like an intensive kind of, not so direct messaging as much as within the lyrics about telling the story of how we need a more peaceful world. So then at that point I was like working with Water Ecuador, which was like an organization that helps clean water in Ecuador, and so it was, I wrote Una Ola in Ecuador, so like that whole vibe was more like that kind of energy. And then I started getting, more like traveling more to South America and I guess seeing more racism and seeing more like things in Mexico and California, just the way people mistreat people, and I was getting really angry, and that's when I wrote Fuerte. So at that point, I guess the anger was building for it. There's a much more powerful rock, kind of Latin rock record about, how if everybody does their part, how we really need to coordinate and start like rising up. Like I was like, okay, now I want to bring people together, because like I was singing to people and they were coming up to me and telling me their stories, and so that was coming out in the lyrics. So it became this kind of cycle of messaging. And Un Fósforo was the single off that album, and Un Fósforo was about, if everybody in the room lights a match and we all do it at the same time, then you light up the room and you can see where where things aren't okay, and you can put a light on, things that are wrong in the world. But if we do it together, we're much more stronger. And Derecho was a song I wrote, which is like a punk anthem that I did a video in Mexico with all these people from Mexico in the video, and it was just like, I think it was all this traveling that made it all build up even more. And then coming back and seeing like, people not treating people right, and then La Lucha. I wrote La Lucha in 2016 before those elections, and it felt really even worse to me. So La Lucha was like, okay, all right, it's really time to use your voice. Enough is enough. La Lucha is, talking about that, that's when I did more activism, and I joined this the Women's March in New York. I was one of the organizers of the Women's March in New York in 2017 after the 2016 elections. My dates are right, yeah. And that first one was in New York. We weren't affiliated with the DC March, and we did our own independent march. And my record just happened to be exactly about what was going on. I guess I didn't know it was going to be this awful election, and so the march was perfect way to get to use the power of music and messaging, and I was like the voice in that for the Spanish-speaking community, so I was doing press on the Spanish-speaking community to try to get them to march and all this, or just to know that they're not alone. You know what I mean? Like, that's really important. So the Women's March was a big, giant commitment that I made, and then I started doing things like concerts for New York Civil Liberties Union, like fundraising concerts, because of the state of the situation that we're in right now, as you know, which is
so you're a Republican. What I'm getting from what you're saying is that you're a conservative. No, but I mean, so you do all these things. How does it feel for you personally, being an immigrant, a Spanish-speaking artist, in the public eye, doing all these things in this political and cultural climate?
I feel honored to be able to represent a lot of people's voices. I'm furious that things are the way they are, but I can do something about it so that I can use this voice and the song lyrics and get, really entice people to empower themselves. I mean, that's the big thing about the Women's March. It was you can do this. These politicians work for us. I'm not a political animal. I'm a musician, and I think we can use our power in what we do. They work for us towards change, and one of the big energy shifts was then the 2018 election, and this is now in the U.S. Now there's parallel stuff going on in South America and in Mexico and Canada. I'm not so involved politically. That's more just trying to get people to, I guess, broaden their perspective on music, because I'm singing in Spanish and doing these weird rhythms embedded, not weird, but fused rhythms. So that's usually what I hope to bring to Canada, if that makes any sense. I try to tell them what the songs are about. And even there, people will say, oh, yeah, I agree. They kind of get the gist off stage. They kind of get this gist of what I'm singing about. But the political thing, it's socioeconomic. It's not just it's so many layers. The gender equality thing, the fact that my mother's Lebanese, my father's from Spain, I'm from Ecuador, I'm an immigrant, I'm a woman. I mean, I'm everything. The current president does not represent. It's he's the antithesis of what I would want in that in that role, and the team around him. Yeah. But we're musicians. We can do something. I have something to say. I'm saying it, and hopefully that will help people. I want to help people, help each other towards a better towards a better direction.
Yeah, I agree. I remember when after that election, and I was like, I should get into politics or be working for politicians on the left. And it's you know what? I also think you just do, I think this is very important. So I had to.
Exactly.
Maybe don't go into politics, Tanya. Maybe just keep doing what you're doing and recording people like you for the
That's brilliant.
record.
And it's so true. And I'm so grateful that you are elevating the playing field for women. Again, it's the equality, the fairness, it's just great work what you're doing. It is. And people are like, I would do it this way. Go ahead, do it this way.
Oh, that's what I tell them too. I'm go ahead.
Well, not even in a negative way. Just we need you to.
Yeah. I know. Also, but like you can also.
You can do it too.
I told someone quoted me the other day. They were talking about how the sense of like competition between women who do this kind of work or even in music at all.
Yes,
and
exactly.
she was like, but I remember when I mentioned something to Tanya, and she said, "Hey, the more the merrier." Like, what the heck? I mean, you're probably gonna interview different people than me, and then let's just have like a giant. Then there's just more people. Like,
is that a problem?
Yeah,
I mean, it's like we're so like underrepresented.
Yeah, or people ask me permission, like, is it okay if I use your interview in a book that I'm like, yes, yeah, please write about it. Like, it's not like my secret collection that I don't want anyone.
Yes.
I want people to use it and talk
and
about
elevate
people.
and shine the light on the issues and organize. Like the second Women's March, because we had the third one this year. The second Women's March.
Women's March Alliance.
Oh yes, and the
that's
group is called the
very
Women's March Alliance that I'm part of, which is I shouldn't be talking Women's March. It should be Women's March
It's
Alliance.
a separate
It's
thing.
and the second Women's March, the Women's March Alliance did in New York in 2018, I guess, was to try to get people to teach people to organize in their own interested initiative.
Yeah.
So like if you're about the environment, here's what you do to organize.
Ba-dum-bum-bum. Oh, I forgot to ask this in the beginning, but who were some of your major musical influences, and then
that's
who are
a
your
tough one.
major musical influences now?
It's an impossible like if you ask me tomorrow, it'll be 12 other people. Like I'm like, okay, I like Ernie Isley, like all these people come, Marvin Gaye, and then it might be Joe Perry, it might be Jimi Hendrix, it might, you know what I mean, Nancy Wilson from Heart, and like of course Marley, of course, like there's, so that's just like what just popped out of, my mother is a huge influence. She is an incredible songwriter. So like melody, everything, the respect for the instrument, all that I learned from my mother, and just your own sound coming out is, my mother is who I worship. I have a couple of songs of hers on my records. But then for songwriting, I have people I worship, like the Marleys and the Marvin Gaye, or I don't know, Neil Young even. And then you get to the guitar playing that I worship, all those great people, like, and then the singing people, then there's the Bonnie Raitt, who's like both singer and, then now Gary Clark Jr. I love how he plays. So like there's different influences, because then there's also people I respect for arrangement, like of songs, where you go, wow, how beautifully arranged a Sade song is. I know it sounds ridiculous, like this, like every part sounds great, like a Fleetwood Mac song, and then you have, so there's like a lot of that kind of arrangement stuff that you listen to. I was just listening, it's obviously Sly and Robbie, who I respect, the Sly and Robbie and Sinead O'Connor fusion of that killer record that has traditional reggae in it. And then you take somebody like Celia Cruz, who is a person you admire, like you want to be her on stage, and a quarter of her. If I could light up a stage a fifth of this much of what she does, then it's you're lucky. Then new people, you're like, again, Gary Clark Jr. I heard Larkin Poe the other day. I love Larkin Poe, what they're doing, and Courtney Barnett, and so there's so many people. Yeah.
No, like, that's a good.
It's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And because then I like soul too, and funk, and you're like, when you get into the funk side, then you have that whole genre of this, you get into the Sly and James Brown and all that, and then all the the Clash, the Blondie, Talking Heads, blah 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 blah. I mean, I love Nirvana. I mean,
very eclectic.
Yeah, and everybody's sound is their sound, and you want your own sound to come out, but it's like I grew up in New York. It's like a school of freaking rock. Like you'd go, you could see a free concert. You could hear like, I don't know, the Police playing, and at the same time that you see this great African band playing at SOBs in the same day.
Yeah.
Like you could see 5 different amazing musicians. I went to the Love Rocks concert and at the Beacon last week, and there were like 7 different Robert Plant was there, and you know, all these amazing musicians. Mavis Staples, like everyone has something that you just soak up.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's hard to answer that question.
No, that's
That's
a good, yeah.
Yeah.
So I have I have a few questions that I ask everyone at the end of interviews.
Okay.
And then it's really interesting to see all the different answers.
So you're sneaky too. You're a pretty
sneaky,
person.
yeah. How do you feel about the category women of rock? Is it helpful or hurtful, necessary or unnecessary? Would it, I mean, at this point, you know, is it more useful to just get rid of gendered categories? Do we still need them to kind of like differentiate?
I think women of rock is still valid today. It's like we still have to make like push out the place for us. You're carving it like in, because if you know all those top 10 lists and everything are still dominated, it like it's still pre-filled with you know male great musicians, but there's a lot of female great musicians that are still underrepresented. So I think it's still valid and important, not even valid, it's like important to carve it. Like it doesn't mean that when I get off the stage, I love when a 21-year-old boy comes up to me and is asking me about my pedals.
Oh.
You know, that's because I want him to see it's normal to go up to a girl who's wailing on guitar. Like that's, so if his sister wants to play, his little sister, whatever, you want it to be like just not isolated, but it still needs to be pushed out, I think. Is that what you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah,
I mean,
some people don't though. I just
agreed.
like to
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm
even
curious
some
what
people
you did.
I've interviewed, there was someone who, she's very nice, we're friends now, but she was like, I almost didn't write back to you because. What?
That's the god of music is ringing the doorbell.
Is it the doorbell?
Yeah.
Oh.
Is somebody, are you expecting someone?
No. No, it could be a
It's probably
delivery.
just,
Do you want me to go downstairs?
Yeah, in case maybe it's a delivery.
Okay.
It might be gear.
Oh, right.
Now that I think of it, that was supposed to be delivered on Sunday from my
Oh.
pedal board. One of my pedal boards.
That's a
Yeah,
cool
it's
interruption.
interesting that.
Yeah,
that-
she said that she almost didn't respond to me because like the title of the project was annoying. She didn't want to be interviewed for another like women. But then when we were done with the interview,
She was like, "This is different."
yeah, she's like, "This is great," and I was explaining to her why. Like, I understand that we're in this kind of, you know, or we're people want us to be in this like post-gender society, right?
Right.
But it doesn't
right, but
mean that it doesn't do anything to rectify the fact that
we're not
women
there.
are still underrepresented
We're not.
and haven't been. So it's like we need to
Yeah.
fix it before we just like do away with the categories.
Yes.
I think.
Agreed.
Yeah, like I don't like categories either, but I mean. I don't know.
But it's not happening without pushing it.
Yes.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Like it's
So-
not. Yeah, that's the thing.
I know, and
Yeah.
I just didn't know what else to call the
Yeah.
election.
Yeah.
That would be more specific.
And you are consciously doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's not like you just backed into it.
Yeah, no, and
I mean,
I'm
if
trying
anything, a lot of those top 10s should just say male because they're.
Okay, so I'm a big proponent of
98% male. Okay, they had Aretha in there or
Yeah.
whatever. I admire, but
yeah.
you know,
No, I'm a huge proponent of also if you have like all male bills or if you have
Yeah,
a list with
it
that
should say
calling
so,
it
yeah.
the best male
Yeah,
rock
right,
guitarists.
right, exactly.
Like just
Exactly.
do it both ways.
That's a good point.
That's what it is most of the time. So
'Cause
I did start doing that.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Or I'll be like, wow, it was so great to go see this like all male rock showcase the other night. It's just a show
Right.
with all men.
And see,
yeah.
they could see that's hilarious.
Yeah.
They could see what it feels, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what you did.
Yeah,
You know.
So that's how I feel about. I mean,
Oh, that's very interesting.
yeah, we'll see what happens like 20 years from now. You know, I don't know, but this is how it is.
But we're not there yet.
I don't think
So,
we're there.
yeah, we're
yet.
not there yet.
3 more. 1 more and then the 2 Oprah Winfrey questions. How do you feel about the visibility of women in rock history in general? Has it gotten better or worse? Is it not really an issue? Is everything fine?
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I don't think everything's fine, but I think it has gotten better. It's like an awareness. I think it's people like you and just everything that's going on is just people are speaking about maybe the people that have influenced them more. There's the Grace Slicks, the Joni Mitchells, that era that was so critical to getting to the next generations and so on, and hopefully that will continue with push it. You got to push it out there because it's still not happening as well as it should be. I think not. So I think what you're doing is really critical and it will make a mark. Like I always say, like for change to happen, like everybody's first of all got to believe. You got to believe in a vision and what you want changed, and you say, okay, we're here with something, and I want it to be here. Let's say, well, this is where my math side comes out. Like if you just make a little change this way, it will you'll end up here in a bunch of years. If you stay this, if you only make this much, you'll end up here. I want to end up here. So where do you want to end up is where you have to turn this dial, I think. And I think that's what people like you are doing. So I'm very grateful.
Thank you. Got another cool Instagram video. People saying nice things about what we're doing. Thanks. And I understood math when you did a hand thing, so I'm like, that's all I need. It's like, oh,
geometry.
Yeah. Okay, last 2. Well, I'll ask this one first. How do you feel about your role in or contribution to rock history?
I hope that my songs are what my contribution is mostly, as well as a role model for, and again, I would normally say young women, but young men too, because I don't want them to think it's strange for a woman to lead a band or write her own songs and sing and play guitar. Not that I'm the only one at all, but especially for young aspiring musicians, that they can use their voice to help for change. That's why the songs are so important, because the messages in my songs are as important as the musicianship. So I hope that's what the mark I leave.
That's a good answer. Okay, last one.
Gracias, profesora. You said good answer, like.
Oh, okay. I didn't get that one.
Professor.
Professora. Okay.
Sí.
Someday. Maybe. If I make it. What are you most proud of personally and or professionally? Preferably both.
Oh wow, I think it's the same answer. I think it's my songs I think.
I really liked your answer about being a role model for not just girls but young boys,
Yeah.
young men too, so they see that it's normal to look up to a woman who plays lead guitar or
Right.
leads a band.
Or is cueing
that's interesting.
the boys on stage or whatever, the guys on stage or. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I have one. We can cut this out too, but this is what I thought that I wanted to ask earlier. So everything that I read about you, I'm throwing this down. I don't even need it.
Okay.
It was like female Santana.
Yes.
Does that okay? That answers my question. Is that annoying?
No. It was really flattering in the beginning, and then it kept like I think writers just kept riffing off it instead of finding their own explanation of my sound, of my guitar sound, and then it got better because then I was like, okay. With La Lucha, I was like, I was just exploring more different sounds sonically on the guitar, and which were less, Santana-ish, I guess. I'm still my own sound, and I understand. So then I got a little other references, so that made me happy. Okay. I'm like, oh, she sounds like Pink Floyd, what's his name? Gilmore, and the other one's. I'm like, so I just was happy to get other references. hugely respect and admire Carlos, and I think what it is because they hear percussion, they hear a guitar, and it's like guaguancó and charanga and all these kind of rhythms, cha-cha and everything that are like part of the Carlos sound. So I think it's fair, and that he does like I think he and I both play like when I play solo in a like more Latino oriented song, it's more like a flute in a charanga song. I don't probably don't know what I'm talking about, but people who listen to Spanish music might, and that's different than like a ripping into a solo like the Edge would with his delays, but it's very different, or like a blues B.B. King-y notey thing,
I just thought it was, no, you're making sense. I always think it's kind of like just like a cheap comparison if you're like, oh,
yeah,
because and it's nothing against
Carlos,
Santana,
obviously, God,
but
God,
I was just like, I feel like you have a more like diverse
Thank
playing
you.
style,
Thank
so
you.
it doesn't really like make any
Thank you.
sense. It's just
yes.
It's just because you both play lead guitar.
If they heard the one, depending what song they hear, like you're not telling me that everybody who wrote that listened to that one song that kind of like the Carlos-y sound, whatever, yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
No offense, Carlos Santana.
Yeah,
what
no,
a great
yeah.
way to end it. Right? I'll put that in somewhere else. But that was the question I wanted to ask. Because
And I rolled my eyes and I
people
couldn't
do
help it.
that
Yes.
To women, is they're just, I don't know, the female so-and-so.
Yes,
and
as
it's
opposed
not-
to, and in fact, like, why is it the female? Like, why isn't it
I know,
just
right?
the next generation Carlos?
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
not that I want that either. But but you're right. Why is it, right.